If you listen to this podcast towards the end, you'll hear all about Jackie's first threesome, and it's amazing. Hey everybody, it's John and Jackie of OpenLove101.com. Welcome to our show. We have a great one today. We love talking about threesomes, and we know that you like hearing about it. So we're going to talk today about how to make sure your partner has an amazing threesome.
Yeah.
And I think we should start off with, though, how do you even get to that point? Where's the conversation? How do you bring up a threesome? Have you guys talked about doing anything in the past? Are you in a monogamous relationship and all of a sudden you decide out of the blue in your mind, let's have a threesome? How are you going to broach that subject with your partner?
Right.
Any thoughts on that?
Well, I can only speak from experience. So our experience is we started our relationship from an open platform from the beginning. So having discussions about threesomes was so early on in our relationship that it was actually a part of the formation of our relationship because it was just all at the same time, you know.
And it really was easier for us to play separately in the beginning.
Yeah, because we were separate in the beginning.
Different states.
Yeah, we were in different states, and me conceptually, I had an easier time trying that out without the added pressure of you being in the room. I mean, I needed to see if it was even a concept I was okay with on my own, being with somebody else. And I think, again, because that was at the beginning of our relationship, there wasn't the investment in the relationship like it would have been maybe if we decided to open up the relationship 5 or 10 years into it. You know, that would have been a completely different conversation. And it was also what you did for a living. I mean, you had swinger clubs. So there was like a sense of safety in it because it's what you did. You had a lot of experience in it. You were really supportive of me in that journey. And so because it was new to me, it was really great to have this advocate for me, pushing me to do it and try it.
Yeah.
And that advocate was you, which was also my partner. So at the very beginning, it was super surreal, but it was fun.
And you know, when I say we played separately, we did play in different rooms in different cities, different states, different houses, whatever it was, but we always shared about that experience with our partner afterwards.
Right.
And that really helped us develop a communication and talking about fooling around with other people.
Well, and I guess that would be step one, our ability to discuss it.
Yes.
Like, what are we going to do? What does that look like? How is that first get together going to be? How do we reassure each other?
Yeah. You know, and there was a conversation about, have you ever thought about doing this? You know, tell me about your past sexual experiences. And, you know, there was a time in some relationships I had where I did not want to discuss my past sexual experiences with a new partner because of my experience with that, of doing that and it not working out very well.
Oh, backfiring.
Yes. Like they would want to know, I would tell them, and then they would say, you know, it would become a negative thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So at some point I decided no more of that.
Yeah.
But in our relationship, it was different. We were really open and discussed those things from the very, very start, our past relationships with other people.
Right.
The relationship in itself, but also the sex, you know, that transpired in that relationship. And
it's interesting that you would say that because in my past relationships, well, specifically the one prior to you and I connecting, the person was very jealous. And so to be with you, and you were almost not the opposite, but you were like pushing me to be out there and authentic and try some things and kind of live and experience life. Like you came at me from such a different angle. I almost didn't know what to do with it. It was almost like I had this sense of freedom that I had never had before. And, so being able to try something like that I didn't have the hangups about it because you were so positive about it. So it allowed me to be positive about it.
And I hadn't really thought about this before. I don't know if I ever really talked about this, but I believe that anybody you ask out there, most people have thought about at one time or another, like, oh, I'd like to make out with that guy or that girl, but they can't say it because the relationship that they're in, they would be in fear of how their partner would react if they said that, they would know their partner would react in a negative way.
Right.
But if we all feel that way, if that's the natural way human beings are, and that's why I would encourage that. It wasn't because I was trying to, push you into doing something.
Right.
I just wanted you to know that if these are natural feelings you're having or thoughts or desires, with me, you can feel free to do that, and I'm going to love you anyway.
Aww.
It's not going to make me pull away.
Right.
Because I want you to be able to be yourself. And
Right.
what brought that up in my mind was when you used to be your authentic self. And I think authentically, I think if people deny it, they're not being completely honest. Like if I think they hang out with their friends, they may admit the truth in that.
Right.
But they're not able to act on it because it's against our societal norms right now.
Right.
Now it's changing, but that's where that came from. It really is about just do what you want to do, just be yourself, and I don't know that I have been in a relationship where I felt that open to saying that either, where I felt there was so much trust already early on in our relationship. I didn't feel threatened. Like if you want to go out with your girlfriends and hang out and go dancing, I mean, you didn't do that, but if you had wanted to, I'd have been, oh, cool.
Yeah.
So that's
yeah. So step one was bringing it up in conversation.
yes.
Kind of setting the stage for that. Now, you and I set the stage from the very beginning because I think there was a sense of freedom because of what you do, and we could just kind of talk about that.
And we could talk about fantasies.
Like, have you ever about fantasies?
And it could come across like, have you ever had a threesome with 2 girls and a guy, or have you had a threesome with 2 guys and a girl? Whatever it is, ask your partner that question.
Right. Like, what's your craziest sexual experience that you've ever had? Is there something you've ever wanted to try?
Yes.
Any of those kinds of things to kind of open up the topic. And these should just be topics that you can discuss from a vulnerable, transparent space. It's not like you said with your past relationships where they would want to hear about your past, but as soon as you would tell them, they would use it against you, or they would immediately compare themselves to whatever your past experiences were. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about, bringing this topic up, and then once you've discussed it and maybe you've decided, yeah, maybe we want to take this from like a fantasy topic to something maybe more real, then what do we do? And I know for us, it was so weird because I didn't have a problem going on a date with somebody else when you were out of town. But when we went to actually set up the threesome date, that took me so long.
Yeah.
And I think it's because you were going to be in the room. And somehow that pressured me. I don't know why, but it made me a little more nervous. So it took us a little longer to actually set that date up. And the reason I bring this point up and why I believe it's important to bring up is you were completely patient with me every time you would be like, okay, so there's this person, and I've said, oh yeah, I think that would be a great person, and we go to set up the thing, and I would back out, and we just wouldn't pursue it, and then we'd wait a little bit, and then we'd try it again, and finally one night I was just like, gosh darn it, let's just do this. I'm gonna just try this. I'm gonna quit letting my hesitancy or my fear or whatever it was get in the way. We're just going to do this, and you were ready. Now, if you had gotten upset with me the first time I did that and been like, you said you were going to do this or whatever, we probably wouldn't be here talking, we wouldn't have open love and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's really vital that we respect each other from that standpoint.
It is. And, I think your exact words were, well, I can't say your exact words, but it was like, screw it. I'm just going to do it. And whatever the consequences are, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
You know, if you get mad at me, you get mad at me. And I'm like, baby, I'm not going to get mad at you. Well, if you do, I'm just going to accept it. I just want to do it. So
Yeah, I'm going to do it for me. And that was, that's another hurdle sometimes we have to get past, and we talk about the importance of doing things because you want to do them. If you're trying to do things to please your partner, it's never going to work. I don't care how much you think it's going to, whatever it is that you're doing, you have to own it.
Well, you can try and please your partner.
You can try to please you. Yes, you can try to please your partner, but if that's the whole goal of what you're doing, it's like, I'm doing this because this will make my partner happy. You miss that critical part of what happiness for yourself is missing.
Yeah.
And so for me in that moment, it became, this is something I want to do. I've always been curious about it. I've got to quit thinking so much about John or, whatever's going on with me. If this is something I want to do, I need to just own it and do it and take responsibility for the aftermath of it. It got to the point where I wanted to be able to say, I did it and I loved it or hated it, or gosh, I wish I had tried that in my life.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of those two choices I got to. And so you were really helpful in that. You found someone and we talked about it and we decided that would be a good choice, and we contacted him and he was good to go. So it was definitely a group effort. There's all three people working together to make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we were all confident and kind and generous in that setting. And so it ended up being just a really great evening for all of us, I think.
Yeah, it's a great memory.
Yeah.
And then, after, it's a new thing.
Right.
And so your partner may not know what to do exactly. So you have to kind of work together. And
yeah,
if you've done one before, your partner hasn't, you can kind of coach through it. If either one of you have ever had an experience like that, maybe the person you're with has, and it's just about conversation and not being worried about doing something wrong, so to speak. It's just like your first time with someone, you may not know exactly what to do, but you just kind of go with the flow, and just it turns out to be what it is. And it turned out to be a great experience. And then after the fact in the car, Jackie and I spoke about it for quite a while. We talked about the feelings we had and the things we liked about it, maybe the things we didn't like about that particular experience. And then you can mold the next one to make it, more along the lines of what you both enjoy together.
Right. Well, and I also realized in that situation where there was the three of us, it gave me an opportunity to see what it was like for the three of us. Because I had kind of built up in my mind that this was going to be a lot of pressure on me having you there, because you were my boyfriend at the time, and you were going to be watching me as my boyfriend playing with someone else, and my brain almost didn't know how to even filter that.
Yeah.
And so to give myself permission to experience that, and then I realized how much comfort it was to have you there, how supportive you were, how much I relied on you being there, and how I could reach out and you would touch my hand, or you were, it's almost hard for me, even 11 years on, to articulate the transformation that took place in our relationship from that point forward.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we got in the car and I was just giddy almost with a lot of different emotions. You were so supportive, and that was something that I feel like had always been missing in my other relationships. I got to be who I was and you loved me for it. It was just I got to be celebrated in my authenticity, and that was just wow.
And I think a lot of women could potentially feel some shame about doing something like that because of how they were raised.
Right.
And that might have been part of the fear that kept you from doing it as well.
Absolutely.
But in the end, I remember in that car, and your feeling was one of empowerment.
Yeah.
Like you, like
Yeah.
I did this and I owned it, and I feel good about myself for doing it. And
Right.
that was a really cool emotion that you were feeling for me, to see you kind of blossom into this independent woman where you knew that you could just be whoever you wanted to be.
Right. Well, and in the car ride home, we both had the freedom to talk about the evening and what we thought. And you weren't threatened by the interchange. I wasn't going through any negative feelings about it. We just got to just kind of embrace it and learn from it. And I got to see another side of our relationship that I didn't really know existed. There was just even more support. I felt even more love from you. And I felt more love towards you as well. When we're accepted wholly, you get to kind of exhale, right? You just like, there's a comfort in it. So I don't know. I think for threesomes, there's those few steps. There's the conversation, there's the patience with your partner, then there's the setting it up together and agreeing together, and then following through on that, whatever that plan is. And then the end is being able to discuss it and be constructive with it. What have we learned? What could we do better? What do we want to do different? What do we not want to do? Maybe we didn't like the experience at all, and so we want to do something different, and that's okay too.
And that's something we didn't really touch upon, because we had such a great experience. That initial experience was really essentially perfect.
Yeah.
But we've had some experiences that haven't been.
Right.
And you could, as a couple, get into a situation with a threesome, or with a couple as well, where you're not feeling it, or somebody is feeling uncomfortable about something. Or what if you change your mind in the middle of it?
Right.
In a case like that, it's really, you have to remember, you're going into these things as a couple, as partners.
Yeah.
And if one person is feeling the shame that we talked about earlier, or uncomfortability, the other partner needs to be supportive in that, no matter what that is. I don't care, if you had been in the middle of it with him, and I started feeling jealous or anger or some kind of fear, or I just want to run away, I just want to leave the room and go be by myself, anything like that.
Right.
I know you would have been supportive of me in the way I was feeling.
Right.
And that's important. No matter how much fun you're having, if your partner is feeling uncomfortable feelings, we have to really be supportive in that,
right.
Rather than, why don't you just go out in the hallway and feel that way, and we'll talk about it later.
Gosh, I can't imagine doing that. That'd be horrible. Yeah. No, and and here's the other thing. In all of those experiences, like you said, sometimes they're going to be stellar and sometimes they're going to be less than stellar, but it doesn't have to, those less than stellar threesomes don't have to keep us from continuing.
Well, learning from it.
Yeah, we can learn from it and help ourselves.
And the other thing that may happen too is there may be something going on with the person that you don't know.
Right.
And it's important to talk about the scenarios before you go into it. So what if the guy wants to do something, I don't want to do it?
Well, and you did do that. You're like, I'm here to help you if you need anything from me. And like, I knew that you were my safe space if something had happened that I wanted to stop. I knew that I had that safety and security to do that.
That's important. And it's also important because some women, and men too, may be afraid to say no to the person. It's a new person. I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to say no, I don't like that. So you may need some kind of a signal for your partner.
Right.
Like, Jackie could give me an eye or like shake her head a little bit.
Or reach over and squeeze your arm.
Yes, and
You're
then I'm
gonna
like,
know.
yeah, she doesn't really like that. Maybe try doing this instead.
Yeah.
You can even coach the person that you're getting with for the first time, and
Right.
that can help the experience maybe flow a little better as opposed to being traumatic.
Right. Right. Yeah, and the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get, and the more self-assured you'll become. It's just like with anything new that you're trying. There's a learning curve to it.
Yes.
But they're great.
Yes. And, we hope you guys enjoy your first threesome. And if you already had some, maybe you learned something from this to help your next experience be even that much better.
Yeah, and share your own tips.
Yes, here on the, in the feed.
Leave it in the comments.
Please do. Absolutely. And also, subscribe to our email list at openlove101.com, and we'll send you updates on when this, other programs like this might air, like how to have an orgy. That one could be coming up soon. Yes. And other things like maybe Jackie will decide to write an article here soon, and you'll be notified about that and events that we have going on. So Thank you guys for joining us today.
See ya.
Great job, Jackie. And if you like that video, please click the button below, subscribe to our YouTube channel. It'll give you plenty of more. Plenty of more?